Edward Bernays, who by 1920 or so was running U.S. propaganda policy domestically and foreign, wrote 3 books on the subject, said we need women in the workforce. We need to have the state take over the children as part of the eugenics plan. These are quotes. We need to totally brainwash and dumb down the public. I've been ordered and given money to do this. He had high classified rank inside the U.S. Army. You can look all this up. He goes, well, first, we don't call it Department of War. We call it Department of Peace. See, everything's flipped. Because back then, we didn't just start wars all the time, but we called it Department of War. You want a war? You got one. So it's the inversion of reality. We're going to Joe Biggs here in a moment from the Situation Room on this. And now look where women are today. Lower wages, incredible unhappiness in every statistic, breakdown of the family, things are falling apart. Women are nothing but sexual objects like they've never been before. Men have been trained to act like Arrested Development 2-year-olds. And they've had the head of the Marine Corps, they've had the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, they've had them all come out in press conferences and say, this will hurt readiness and this will hurt our mission if we put women in frontline combat roles. We have to lower the size of the packs. We have to cut back. We're being ordered to lower standards. We can't do this. More than ever, the special forces do most of the work. That's why they've expanded them. And Ash Carter came out in the press conference we've got up on Infowars.com and said, look, I don't care what the heads of the joint military forces say. We're going to do this. And we'll see lots of propaganda of women carrying men around on their backs. When the truth is most men, I mean, maybe 1 out of 30 are able to actually compete and operate at the level of special forces. Special forces has gotten better, not worse. It's gotten just insane on its war footing and all the combat actual training. So this is about being able to draft your daughters when they come in with national conscription for 3 to 4 year forced terms domestically. And they've announced this for decades. This is the European plan as well. They're going to open it up for combat, but it's also about women just being slaves, being drafted into domestic operations and being wedded to the state. Because the state's going to give them discipline, get in their face, tell them who the boss is. But they can't have any authority or even co-parenting or a co-relationship with their man at home. And this is pure social engineering. They admitted it, just like can't say mother and father, can't say boy or girl, purple penguins. You know, if someone says there's 2 genders, the police are called at a college. The police say, yes, that's a hate crime. To even deny someone's existence, deny global warming, we want to arrest you. They're coming. All combat jobs open to women in the military. The Defense Department will lift all gender-based restrictions on military service starting in January, Defense Secretary Ash Carter announced today. The historic change will clear the way for women to serve in all the armed services. And it goes on from there. Carter's decision comes as a rebuke to an internal recommendation from the Marine Corps that sought to keep some jobs closed to women. In contrast, the Army leaders recommended opening up all combat jobs to women. That's not really true. They fired everybody that wouldn't. While the Marine Corps asked for a partial exemption in some areas, such as infantry, machine gunner, and fire support, reconnaissance, and others, we are a joint force, and I have decided to make a decision which applies to all of the force, the entire force, Carter said at a Pentagon press briefing this morning. The important factor in making my decision was to have access to every American who could add strength to the joint force. That's right. Male and female fetuses also get harvested and sold to the highest bidder, and male and females get to work in Foxconn Apple slave factories 17 hours a day till their fingers bleed and then be forced drugged and forced aborted with suicide nets. Oh, and by the way, though, they don't put women in frontline combat in China or anywhere else. And if you push gay marriage in China, they kill you. You go, but that's the progressive communists. They must be the... No, communists would never allow that because they've already taken over. This is how they collapse us. Believe me, when they're done collapsing us, there's not going to be humans in combat except for small support teams that are back from the robot force. That's all official. So, but to sabotage the human force, even though it's better overall, even the best robots they're developing and will be, they might not follow orders and they are truly autonomous to the Bill of Rights and Constitution and are actually patriots. And so they're creating an autonomous robot force that isn't really autonomous. It's been programmed by the globalists. Just like in the future, what you eat and what you do and what your job is will, quote, be from a computer, so it's non-biased. No, it's programmed by the globalists. This is the panopticon zeitgeist hellhole the UN's pushing. So it's all coming up. Joe Biggs will pop in on this, but look, they have problems with men cracking up. It's been known since the beginning of time, women will cause big problems in combat. The federal government has been hijacked by robber barons who are social engineers and who are beta testing the destruction of society here in the United States. And, of course, it's the so-called left that wants to make women fight in combat. They want to destroy the sacredness of femininity. They want to use women just like they've used men as slaves. Men historically and genetically, but this is also this way in much of the mammal kingdom, are the ones that go out and do the main fighting. Today, that is all being inverted because they are getting rid of humans. They're telling us the age of humans are over, so you have to pull men out of the positions of leadership in traditional male roles because you're going to put robots in those positions. Joining us to talk about this is combat veteran, Purple Heart recipient, Joe Biggs, to give us his view on this. You've heard my analysis of it, Joe, joining us from the Situation Room. What is your view on this?
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, when you inject women into combat, you're now messing with the male psyche. You're now messing with this men's primitive want to protect a woman. So when you put those women out there and they're being shot at, men aren't going to be concerned with their objectives. They're not going to be focusing in on the enemy. Instead, they're going to be worried about whether or not this female soldier is doing okay, because that's their instinctive nature to take care of them and make sure that they're all right. So it's a huge issue to bring women into this kind of role. And now they've already got women who have been passed through Ranger School, and the officer who was over the Ranger School said that these women would get through regardless. So you know that they ignored standard operating procedure, they fudged a lot of the different standards, and they allowed these women to go through to be PC. And now you have a House panel that's voted to make women register for the draft. Women will have to register for the Selective Service and would be eligible to be drafted in the military under provision approved by a House panel yesterday. Now, the proposal passed the House Armed Services Committee without support from its sponsor, Iraq War veteran Representative Duncan Hunter, a Republican from California. Now, he introduced this as a way to force congressional conversation about the role of women in the military, and he didn't actually think that it would get any support. And the people that actually backed him to bring this forward as a way to open up conversation and maybe sway some of these people from bringing women into combat turned on him and actually voted for it. So now women from the ages of 18 to 26 at some point will end up having to sign up for the draft. And the vote came the same day after Army officials announced that Captain Kristen Greist, one of the first women to earn a Ranger tab, will be becoming the Army's first female infantry officer. So now you've got this lady who's going to be in charge of special operations soldiers in high combat.
And let's just face it, I mean, they're not going to respect her. The guys they usually put in charge have been in like 7, 8 tours, are total badasses, super smart, and still, if they screw up, people lose confidence in them. Historically, also, women get more infections. Women tend to get hysterical when other people are being killed. Women tend to have more atrocities committed by them. Once they get in an emotional state, they have 3 times the connections between left and right hemispheres of their brain. There's a reason no culture puts women in frontline combat, because it is a disaster.
Exactly.
And it's designed as sabotage against the U.S. military, Joe.
I mean, think about what's happened under the Obama administration thus far. You've got soldiers marching around in red high heels. You've now got women being brought in. You know, we look like a joke in
They're
front of
turning
other
it into a
countries.
huge social justice warrior re-education
You've
camp.
got Navy sailors on their, on the ground on a boat sitting there crying. I mean, that is ridiculous. We look like a joke, and this is all part of his plan to destabilize us and make us look weak around the world.
You're absolutely right. You're going to be covering this more in the Nightly News tonight and filing special reports. Other key points, Joe.
I mean, I just don't understand how this could go by. I mean, people need to wake up and see what's going on. This is not going to help. At some point in time, we cannot let political correctness destroy our country.
But it's, as you said, though, is there any doubt it's by design? When you talk to your former soldiers, current soldiers, what is their view on this program?
Well, they're scared because when when they go to these EO equal opportunity meetings that they have, they tell people how that they try to help them introduce how to ignore the fact that it's a woman there, to try to continue on with your mission, to walk a mile in their shoes, to do all this and that. And they're completely trying to turn our military into these same social justice warriors that we see in Portland and Denver and Manhattan and all over all these different rallies. It's sickening.
Joe, it's amazing that they execute homosexuals in communist countries because they claim it's a Western destabilization program. Well, I'm not saying gays themselves are evil or a destabilization program, but it's true that when a government pushes all this, women in combat, can't say father and mother, I mean, this is how you kill a species. This is how you bring a society down. Joe Biggs, thanks for that information. We'll be back with the foreign policy statements of Donald Trump and so much more. A lot of key clips from his speech and the 30th anniversary of Chernobyl. Straight ahead, I'm Alex Jones, Infowars.com.